Welcome. Today we have Mark Kelly with us from Regulatory Advice Limited, the CEO and founder. So welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And how do you see the latest development in the regulation of cryptocurrencies?
Well, there's been a lot of apparent movement this year from the UK regulator, from the HM Treasury, but I'm not sure that we are much further forward than we were at the beginning of the year. What I'm covering in my speech within the conference is really 3 points. I'm saying people a couple of years ago there was nothing, and they seized hold of e-money regulations and tried to get an e-money license. In lots of ways that wasn't necessary, because you only need an e-money license if your wallet is going to be used to send to multiple different people. If your wallet is only going to be used to buy crypto from yourself, you really don't need to get that regulation. But it served a purpose. It served the purpose of letting firms be visibly regulated at a time when cryptocurrency had a very bad reputation. It allowed banks to get a little more comfortable with partnering with crypto firms, and it actually allowed people to passport in the permissions they received into other European countries. Now, from January, a lot of that goes away. You know, depending on what happens within Brexit, it might not be possible to passport into European countries anymore. In fact, Coinbase, the firm I was with most recently, its Brexit strategy was to set up an e-money institution in Dublin which could carry on that passporting. Likewise, from January, the 5MLD makes all cryptocurrency firms obliged entities under the 4th Money Laundering Directive, which means that they all have to have anti-money laundering and KYC controls anyway. So they will all be visibly regulated, and they have to be authorised and registered with the FCA as crypto firms, and the need to be e-money institutions falls away. So that's the sort of historical background. What's happened this year is there's been an attempt to stipulate what's within the regulatory perimeter within the cryptocurrency world and what's outside. So some of the traditional cryptocurrencies like BTC, Bitcoin and Litecoin are outside and unregulated. A lot of the securities tokens that are coming in now are regulated, but there hasn't been a lot of detail about how they get treated, how you actually set up, for example, a securities token offering on an exchange. So lots of discussion, not a lot further forward. But from January, there really is a need to do something. All crypto firms will be caught by this 5MLD obligation, the 5th Money Laundering Directive, and they will all have to have this AML. That's one of the targets of my company, really, is just to give people a clue what to do from January onwards, especially if they're a smaller crypto firm. In the past they haven't done any anti-money laundering controls, or the main topic that I'll go through is it's not enough just to buy in a plug-in application which lets you do onboarding. Really, you've got to think about all of the wraparound controls, like the policies and procedures, all the governance, the board reporting, having a money laundering reporting officer, lots of things which are quite cheap to implement, but you've got to know that that's part of the FCA expectation.
With the legal status of the initial offerings, maybe you can give us your insight regarding this and how you see this affecting.
Yeah, this is really splintered in the last couple of years. Everyone was comfortable with the idea of an initial coin offering, an ICO, but there was a lot of things came out in ICOs that got a bit of a bad reputation back in 2017 when everyone was doing them. Initial exchange offerings are taking the same kind of thing, just a token being issued, and doing it through a crypto exchange. So the crypto exchange will do some due diligence, they'll sponsor it, and the benefit is you know that the token is going to have a listing there, so it's got a secondary market straight away. So that's a big advantage. IDO, this is the initial distributed exchange offering, is much the same thing. None of those are a problem in the UK environment, because as long as you don't end up issuing something that is treated as a security. The big problem in the UK is if you have a securities token offering and it's treated as being a designated investment under the Financial Services and Market Act of 2000, then you have an issue, because before you can hand that out to people, before you can distribute it, unless you've got an exemption, you have to go through, you have to provide a prospectus, and that has to be signed off by the FCA. There are some exemptions if it's under £8 million, if it's only made available to qualified investors, that is kind of professional investors. But even so, once it's out there, even if you manage to get one of these exemptions, once it's out there, it's a security. And you can't offer to do any kind of secondary trading of that without going through the full MiFID license arrangement. I'm dealing with, I know that Archax are at the top of the list in getting an STO platform here. I'm working with a group called NextHash, who are aiming to join that queue. They really want to do things properly and to do it in a compliant way. But I have to warn everyone that to do this properly, it's not in crypto time. Crypto time, you can whip something up in 5 minutes. To be a MiFID regulated broker or MTF, you're probably looking at spending over £1 million, taking over a year, and not having any guarantee that you get registered at the end. That's a big change in mentality for a lot of the firms who want to come in.
And what our viewers would like to know probably is how do you see the regulation changing in the future? Do you see anything new coming in, anything that might affect?
Well, there's a couple of things in the UK, and there's even more elsewhere. In the UK, there's a suggestion that we might be moving the regulatory perimeter to bring things like Bitcoin and Litecoin inside, which would be very, very interesting, especially when you think that would mean people would have to assess suitability of Bitcoin for the person who wants to buy it if you treated it like a security. They are also looking at completely banning derivatives, even CFDs. CFDs are already restricted in the UK and the EU to 2 times leverage. CFDs or spread bets based on cryptocurrency. We haven't really seen the effects of that. That only came in last August. But without seeing how that has panned out, the FCA is thinking of banning them completely. Banning not just CFDs, but futures, options, spread bets, even exchange-traded notes which reference a crypto asset. It's a very severe thing. This is a ban for retail users, not for professional users. But again, it might leave some retail investors with no way to hedge any physical Bitcoin that they have. So that's what we see coming up in the UK. In the EU, I really hope that this more harmonisation comes in, because at the moment, you wouldn't think that there was a common framework for financial services, because Gibraltar, Malta, Estonia, they're all doing their own thing, and there's no real overarching pattern or enforcement of the current rules. So let's hope that moves forward in the future.
And finally, we're in London, the Finance Magnates Summit for 2019. What do you expect from the show? What do you expect to gain from the show? How do you see it going? Well,
I'm looking forward to my presentation, obviously, but there's a great crypto thread running right through this show. I mean, this has always been a great venue for the CFD and the Forex brokers and so on, but they've really stepped up and accepted that crypto is a big thing now. So there are some good presentations going on, which I hope to catch on how to set up a crypto exchange and how crypto is changing the market and tokenization of everything. There's a lot of good speakers here. I'm really looking forward to it.
So thank you, Mark, for joining us today.
Okay.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay. Enjoy the show.
Good to meet you.
Your pleasure.
Bye.